Hello Internet, and welcome to another Metroidvania map announcement. This one for Aeterna Noctis, a rather large, possibly the largest Metroidvania game I've ever mapped out. It took somewhere in the region of about 30 hours, upwards of 30 hours, almost 35 hours, to map this out. It is a beast of a map. It is beautiful, but it is not going to be for everyone. There are two game modes available in Aeterna Noctis. The most recent mode, the Aeterna mode, is actually the one that I played on and is the one that this map is based on. So if there are any discrepancies between the two game modes in terms of item placements and stuff like that, I don't know what they are. So apologies for that, but I have no particular desire to play through the game again. In all honesty, the start of the game was slow, the middle of the game picked up a bit, and the end of the game really felt like it could have ended several hours earlier. It just kept on going. Add to that the fact that the platforming the platforming and exploration really weren't all that fun. They weren't bad, but I personally didn't find them fun, simply because there's a lot of slightly more precision platformy elements to it. And whilst I like precision platforming in my Metroidvanias, in small doses, there seemed to be quite a lot of it in quite a few places. So, in front of you, you've got the map, and you'll notice that it's basically impossible to see at this scale. And in fact, I haven't put together, this isn't the fully updated version of the map, because it was just too much to fit onto one sheet, essentially. So what I have instead done is broken it up into individual areas. This is still the widest one. It's got my usual information on in the corner, and it's even got a key for common elements. But this is its actual size. You've got all your shop items, all of your special bits and pieces, but as per usual with my maps, it's got everything that I could think of marked on. It's got bosses. Each room in Aeterna Noctis actually has its own name, so each of those is named as well, which should make it easier for people to say, oh yeah, it's in Western Wall Floor 3, for example, if you're looking for the 6th key. All of the collectibles are marked on this. So we've got keys, we've got chests, we've got Soul Mirror Fragments, we've got dark materials to collect, we've got skill points to collect, all of those bits and pieces. We've got save points, proper save points, the thrones marked on. There are actually lanterns everywhere, which auto-save your progress when you walk past them. I have not marked those on. That would take forever. We've got skill points marked on there. We've got little special monoliths and stuff. These vary depending on which map, but they're kind of lore points that you can collect as you go. We've got doors and the things that open them. There are two different things that open doors. You've got these little purple symbols which you hit with your sword, and you've got little yellow symbols. Have I got one on this particular map? Yeah, there's one here. These little yellow symbols you have to hit with your arrows once you get those. All of the NPCs are marked on. Powers and upgrades, those should be in purple. I'll have to change that. NPCs and what they do, etc, 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 all marked on here. Music scores that you can collect, they're actually listed in the key anyway. Any special powers or abilities that you get. But yeah, each one of these is a fairly substantial area. And, you know, they're not terrible to explore, but there's quite a lot of precision stuff, especially in the later areas where the teleport arrow is involved. There's quests and stuff. There's gems which you can collect and slot into your gear in various places. There's additional weapons that you can acquire. I've tried to link up the various doors so that they make sense, add on any quest details. This is one of the most vertical ones. It's a massive tower that you have to explore. But again, everything is on here. Watch out for this guy. I've called him Cornifer in the files. I can't remember what his actual name is. He's the guy that sells you the map. These are labelled as regioned map, and I think it's knowledge atlas actually in the game, but it's basically a map of all the secrets. So realistically, a lot of this map is kinda redundant to an extent, but the difference between this map and the in-game map is that this is one of the biggest maps I've done, because this has actually got 3 different areas on it because of how it's all slotted together. The map in-game has a reasonably obnoxious fog of war effect, which covers everything. It's one of the worst I've seen in a game. It's worse than Metroid Dreads, and I went through and uncovered every single square inch of that map. These maps are taken from the game files. I put these together after the fact, and they're all in kind of individual pieces, which is why sometimes they don't quite line up properly. I did my best to mess with that, to scale them up properly, but there's only so much I could do and still have everything work properly. But yeah, so this is what the map looks like without the fog of war. This area here deserves special mention because it is, as I said at the top, this is a much more polite message than it used to be. It's a pain to navigate. You come into it here, you start off here, and you get the Hours of Truth, which reveals hidden things. And then you've got 2 sets. I couldn't think of a good way of doing this. I tried linking them up with kind of dotty lines, but it was just spaghetti junction. So each exit is numbered with a white number, and it also tells you in green which exit it actually goes to. So, for example, this goes to Enigma 1. So this is Enigma 1 here. This is handy that they're numbered. And then this is entrance 1, and it goes to 55. 55 is down here. So that links over to there, and this takes us to this room. Then you can go to 59 this way, wherever this is, 37 that way, 61 that way, and so on and so forth. It's a pain to navigate, and this was the area where things really felt sloggy for me, and I really didn't like this area. I've got used to it, and even now I can kind of get around it okay. And you get used to where things are, because actually looking at this is quite slow, if I'm honest, but it is what it is. Also, some of these areas that I've marked with white numbers, as it turns out, aren't actually doors. I marked them all just based on where the gaps in the map were before I actually, tried to key out what was what. But since I'd already done that, I couldn't go through and just delete the numbers, because it would have been even more confusing. Where's number X? Where's number Y? There's a couple of quests here that you can do. This bit here, to get this Soul Mirror Fragment, there are 4 bells in this room, and you have to hit them in this order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It involves teleporting arrows. It's a bit faffy, if I'm honest, but it is doable. These halves of the map do not link up. They're the same zone, but you actually have to get the tram. This is the tram guy from one place to the other. This is one of the coolish zones. It's not the coolest zone. You come in here from Infinite Bay. There's various bits and pieces, but it's very platformy. This is where my ideas about marking on the kind of dark barriers that you find in the world, and you get an ability to maneuver around, really started falling apart, because this area is covered in really weirdly shaped dark barrier areas, and I just wasn't gonna. I was far too lazy for that. But yeah, we've got this arguably as the coolest looking area in the game, but also the Ian Malcolm area of the game. If you know Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park, the idea about the developers were too preoccupied with wondering whether they could do something that they didn't stop to think about whether they should do something. All of the platforms in this area are round, and you are locked to the centre of gravity at the centre of each. So you can go upside down, and you have to shoot arrows between them, but you have to take into account, well, what's the new up when you're doing it, and so forth. There's kind of you can, in fact, you can just about see them on here. There's kind of gravity zones around each one, and you have to hop between them, and it's quite cool. It's a really nice idea, but it takes an awfully long time to get hang of, and it's kind of frustrating. On the subject of frustrating, if you dislike the way that Hollow Knight did its map system, where you actually have to buy the maps, you're not going to like this map system here either. Fortunately, you've got these maps to look at, because he does work exactly the same way as Cartographer. Rather unfortunately, as often happens, I worked my way all the way up through this zone, and I missed him. I went this way to start off with, and I did all of this and all of that before I actually unlocked the maps. That was faffy. This was quite a cool area, though a lot of the background elements looked like foreground elements in places in terms of the electricity effect, so watch out for that. The one thing that I haven't marked on this that I probably should do is that in a few places there are these little plus minus switches. These change the polarity of certain, there's not many of them, certain kind of doorways, which you have to watch out for. There are actually a load of platforms in these particular areas that are affected by the polarity, but again, I wasn't going to mark all of those on. Far too lazy for that. Maybe I should have labelled the teleporters. Don't know. Maybe I'll add that on as well. Key items are marked in green. Bosses have got skull icons. Each of them has got a little bit of a note about each. This was a really cool zone. I really enjoyed exploring the Abyss. It was dark. It's very Hollow Knight-y in its general tone, but I really like the enemy design in this area. And this is where you get the Night Cloak ability, which allows you to go through these various areas. This is another area where you've got these little book podium lore style things that you can get. When you do get to the Abyss, I highly recommend you going down this one here. I think you can get down there to get to the map, because I actually went all the way around here, all the way around that way. I missed going up here, so I actually didn't get the map for this area right up until I was pretty much done with it. This is an interesting zone. This is where you really need to have mastered the kind of teleport arrow platforming. It's big, it's sprawling, it's cool to look at. There are a lot of enemies, but they're fairly squidgy. Not very squidgy, but fairly squidgy. Portals around. This is a cool area, as is this one. And this is my final note before we wrap up this video. Aeterna Palace is an area with various states. So your goal in this place to start off with is to work your way up to here and here, these two different towers. And once you hit the tower, it changes the state of each tower from lit to unlit, so from light to darkness. And this actually changes what the rooms look like on the map. Obviously, this is a static image. I've got no way of doing that. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter because the actual overall layout of the room doesn't change. It's just that some of the kind of big light areas which you insta-give you, they are turned to darkness areas, which, of course, when you've got your night cloak, you can just walk through. So, do I recommend Aeterna Noctis? If you are not a huge fan of places like the Path of Pain in Hollow Knight, or you don't like games like Celeste or Super Meat Boy, you might get away with playing it on Aeterna mode, which is what I did. You're still looking at a massive game with a lot of deaths and arguably some slightly iffy controls. I really like the arrow aiming to be slightly less sensitive, or at least to give us some sensitivity controls, because it's all done on the left stick. I don't know what it's like on keyboard and mouse. There was no way I was going to try and play a platform on keyboard and mouse. But it's just a little bit too faffy, in my opinion. I do really like the kind of construction of the world. It is nicely put together, but it is less fun to explore than I'd like. I'd really like a way of actually, putting out a version of this map, but it's just too big. It's a huge map. So yeah, I'll see if I can think of a way to do that. But Aeterna Noctis is a reasonably expensive game at about 25 quid, but it is many hours of content, as long as you don't mind some frustrating platforming, because that's what kills it for me. The combat is okay. Graphically, it's very impressive. It's hand drawn. The only thing I don't like about the graphics is the main character's idle animation, where he kind of just rocks side to side or back and forth, which looks really weird. Don't like that at all. There's quite a few people on the Steam forums complaining about that. But there we go. The Aeterna Noctis map. Give the game a shot if you fancy it. You can always you'll get a pretty decent idea in the first couple of hours as to whether you are going to like it or not. As I said, I do recommend playing on Aeterna mode because the platforming feels better. Noctis mode is the original mode, which is kind of the same as the demo, which I did a playthrough of on the channel. I'll link to that in the corner if I remember. And I didn't like the feel of the platforming there. The jump always felt just a little bit too short. Aeterna mode, I think, ups the kind of jump feel, and it's much improved. In terms of where do you go to find the maps, if you go to my coffee.com page, scroll down a bit, and you'll find it's the last thing that I've added there. Aeterna Noctis area maps 100%. For the first few weeks or so, I'm going to be driving people towards the coffee page. It's not locked behind a paywall or anything, but it centralizes and protects the integrity of what I am doing, rather than just sticking it up on the Google Drive. So you'll click through to this, and there's a link there, and that will take you to this folder where all of the different area maps are. They're all here. As with Google Drive, normally you can zoom in and out of them. They take a little while to update. There's also a README here with some various bits and pieces of information. This is the bit that's kind of important. You do have permission to download these for your own personal use, but you can't make any financial gains off them. There's no making money off them. I'm not allowing it. Not a single website has got my permission to upload, to turn into guides, or use these maps. I don't care whether they credit me or not. None of them has permission to do it. I am sick and tired of people stealing my work, stick it on their websites, covering their page with ads, making money off my work. At 30 to 35 hours worth of work putting into this, I'm not dealing with it anymore. I do really appreciate, however, every single donation that is made to my coffee.com account. But as I said, they're not locked behind a paywall, so you can just go and download them at your leisure. Follow me on coffee.com for updates about maps. This is pretty much all I use that for. You can also follow me on Twitter and see the random crap that I repost. Most of it's Final Fantasy XIV related, because of course it is. And of course you can follow me on YouTube to keep up to date with all of the bits and pieces that I am posting on there. This video's dragged on. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Happy platforming. Cheerio. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why not click the like button and consider subscribing. Remember, you can ring the bell notification icon to get notified when new videos go live. And until next time, cheerio.